Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, we're gonna have a public hearing first here before the actual plan commission meeting. So I'm gonna open the public hearing at 6:31 PM here at the Richard Young Fire Station for the plan commission. Can I get a roll call, please?
Chairman Osterman,
Here?
Supervisor Plotecker. Here. Commissioner Nelson is absent. Commissioner Meyer.
Here.
Commissioner Everly.
Here.
Inspector Olhafen.
Here.
Commissioner Mouche.
Here.
Planner Holloway.
Here.
Attorney Van Clunen.
Here.
Engineer Mitch Lysis is on Zoom. Administrator Nicholas.
Here.
And Clerk Capazzo to record the minutes.
Thank you. All right, notice was given that a public hearing will be held by the Lisbon Plan Commission on Thursday, June 10th, 2021, during the regular Plan Commission meeting, which starts at 6:30 at the Richard Young Fire Station, North 54 West 26455 Lisbon Road, Lisbon, Wisconsin, 53089, to solicit public comments on the conditional use permit request for a truck wash in the B4 local business zoning district by applicant David Baum and Schrader and Holtz Architects on behalf of owner Najwa Hamdan. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. The property located at County Highway K and Corey Corners Parkway, Pewaukee, Wisconsin, 53072, tax key LSBT 0284.994.001. This is the public portion. It's a public hearing. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on this public hearing tonight? Is there anyone here that is for that public hearing tonight? Our applicant. Anyone that wishes to speak at this public hearing? If you would step up and state your name and address.
So there's an on switch for the microphone. Just switch the button and it should light up green.
My name is Bill Carity, and I am not a resident of the town of Lisbon, but I was the original developer of the Corey Corners Business Park back in 1999. And I did that for some out of state folks that were the original owners, and we have sold the vast majority of the land there. Just wanted to register that we have no objection to this type of use on the hard corner. So essentially that's it. I will admit that we have not seen the actual architecture of the building, and so we would like to better understand that. Perhaps that's a part of this evening's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak at the public hearing portion? All right, last call. We will close the public hearing then at 6:34. I'll then open the regular Plan Commission meeting at 6:34. We've already done a call to order. Or excuse me, a roll call. Citizens' comments is item 2. Does anyone wish to speak about any item on the agenda tonight or anything else?
Is it on? John Then, W226N8947 Jolin Drive. I'm here to discuss or just open up a discussion about item F, the AGRA, the new district that Town of Lisbon is considering putting in. And the reason I'm here to open up a dialogue about that is because it's specifically being designed for the Bass's more or less amusement park. And so my understanding is Lisbon wants to create a zoning district so that Bass's can move a lot of their stuff out of Richfield and come across over into Lisbon. And so the reason I'm here is because where Bass's wants to put their, well, let's call it their steam trains and their wedding venues and everything else is adjacent to my house. I have a house in 50 acres, so I have a substantial investment where they want to move to. And the reason they want to move to Lisbon is they got shot down. Well, Richfield said absolutely not. They don't want them to put that train in. They bought a big giant train. I can show you the train they bought. It's they want to put this train in. It's a big giant steam train, it's about 8 feet high. That's the one they want. They want that to go behind my house. So it's a big. So that's the train. And they also want to put a wedding venue in and do weddings. And like, I'm a businessman, we own plenty of businesses, so I'm not here to object to anybody growing and expanding their business. I just think it has to be carefully, very carefully done so it doesn't disturb other people who may be adversely affected, you know, by a situation like that. So since it's going to be going pretty much all day long, all weekend long, and then wedding venues, we all know, go till 1 in the morning, like they don't even get started till 9 at night. And I have a 9-year-old daughter, we put to bed at 9:15. So that's why I'm here. And I'd like to be part of the discussion on F since it's going behind my house. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Well, one more thing I wanted to say is, like, we can, and I'm not objecting because I understand business, but we can already hear it in our house. You know, they have cannon shooters. They already have a train over there. So.
Hi, I'm Heidi Fenn, and I live at W226 and 8947 Jolin Drive in Sussex. And I too wanted to comment on item F. Also interested in better understanding the new tourism zoning district and what that entails. Because our property would be very close, it's right behind our house. I also don't want to deal with a steam train. You know, having a family and I don't want to listen to that in my house. I can already hear the noise that comes from the Bozzies, as well as the cannonball shooter that's very noisy. We can hear it in the fall. We don't want to listen to that closer. We don't want the late nights listening to the rock and roll music or, you know, any prostitutes in the parking lot or anything crazy, carnival lights and all that stuff. And are, you know, close to being our neighbors. So wanted to learn more about that and noise and dust and all that stuff would definitely be a concern for our family. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak under citizens' comments?
Good evening. My name is Rod Zubella. I'm not from town of Lisbon. I'm from Madison. I'm the president of Veerbecker, so I work with Rachel Holloway. I'm just here tonight to introduce myself and say thank you for allowing us to be your planner for the last 4 years. And that's about it. I'll let you go so you get to your meeting. I'm gonna stick around though.
You can just set it down. It'll turn off on its own, I think. Tends to turn off in people's hands as it is. Does anyone?
So the train they want to put is the same one at the zoo. All right. When you park at the zoo, you're not even anywhere near the gate yet. You can already hear the train. You can hear it going. You can hear it blowing. I mean, it's just, there's a reason Richfield doesn't want it anywhere near them. So thank you.
Thanks. Does anyone else wish to speak? All right. I'm going to close to this. Thank you. We'll close citizens' comments and move on to the minutes. Discussion necessary action on the following minutes. With the March 11th, 2021 Public Hearing and Plan Commission minutes, the April 8th, 2021 Plan Commission minutes, and the May 13th, 2021 Public Hearing and Plan Commission minutes. So we can take them separate. We can take them all together, however anyone would like, but we need to take them somehow. I'm sorry?
Separate. I have to abstain on the first two.
Okay. Is there a motion on any of the minutes at this point?
Move approval of the March 11th minutes as published.
Moved by Mark Meyer to approve the March 11th minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Becky. Any discussion on them? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? How many people voted affirmative? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like 5 and 1 abstain.
Yeah, one abstention.
All right, how about the April 8th minutes?
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes from the April 8th Plan Commission.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Brian. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Anybody abstain on that one? 1, okay. 5-0. And on the May 13th minutes, is there a motion on those?
I'll make a motion to approve the May 13th, 2021 public hearings and plan commission minutes.
Motion by Joe Everly. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Becky. Any discussion on those minutes? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous.
Abstain.
You abstain, Mark? 5-0. All right, item 4, announcements. The change of the Plan Commission meeting date is going to happen next month from the second Thursday to the first Thursday of each month. We're going to go back to the way we were, beginning on July 1st. So everybody's aware. So if there's any questions on it, Kathy can explain. And
I notified the clerk I will not be available for the August changed date.
okay, thank you,
So,
Joe.
You know, Joe.
All right. Move on to item 5, and I will turn this one over to Becky, which I'm sure she's ecstatic about.
Unfinished business. Discussion and necessary action on the request by Tyson Strankman / Sunvest Solar Inc. on behalf of owners Hans Dawson, Sussex West Quarry LSP LLC for the properties located at North 51 West 24011 Lisbon Road, LSBT 0280.992 and North 51 West 24073 Lisbon Road, LSBT 0280.999 in the Q1 quarrying zoning district for the following. The first one is the conditional use permit for a solar installation. And it was tabled on the 13th of May. Do we take them one at a time? Okay, all right. Rachel?
Item, like you mentioned, it's on the parcel just south of, on the south side of County Highway K. This is a property. Not back when public hearing was held. For solar installation zone 2-1 quarrying district.
Yours has got a rattle to it.
That's better. Okay. Does that sound better? Okay, so this item, this has been the solar field, itself, I believe, is about 7 acres. I apologize, I have my papers down here. The site plan is in the packet. It shows the same layout that you saw a few months ago at the commission meeting. Worked with the applicant to get additional information since that time. If you recall, the commission requested several items from the applicant, including information on combustibility, sound in particular, potential impacts to adjacent properties, especially residential, because the other properties largely to the east and south are already used or planned and zoned for quarrying activity. And the additional information was provided. So it also included, and this is in the packets, there's a good deal of material, the reclamation plan for the quarry operation that owns the land, just to confirm that it also contains letters of support that this solar installation that would be on a 30-year lease would not negatively impact the quarrying operation or the ability to fulfill their reclamation plan. So that has been provided for the town's consideration. We had some details in here that have also on the slides, just showing the potential height of the equipment on site. This was discussed. There were no changes from the previous meeting as far as the equipment and its placement and how it would be positioned on site. There's an access driveway. They also provided documentation to confirm that there would be access guaranteed through the site from Lisbon Road. And this goes through a site that's already leased by Stark Pavement Company. And so they would utilize the same access drive off of the road to access the solar site. However, this site would not actually have employees on site very often. It's a fairly limited amount of maintenance as far as plantings. There would be some landscaping on site underneath the solar panels as well as around the perimeter. And there would be a fence enclosure for this operation as well. And they have different kinds of plantings. So that's in your packets as well. There are two different kinds of like planting mixes for the landscaping there. And a plan for how that would be maintained. That was another request of the commission, and that was included. The one significant change for this plan since the last meeting in relation to adjacent properties and just ensuring that this would not have a negative impact since it would be on the site for a significant number of years is the addition of a landscape berm to the north of the solar field. And this is now located just north of where the solar panels would be. And this would help ensure, just kind of add another buffer to the site. The panels would generally be reflecting light to the south, and there's not a lot of developable land to the south, and there's conservancy land that wraps around this solar field, if you recall, from the west, south, and southeast. But just to the north, that berm is proposed to kind of further mitigate and just shield this site from the surrounding lands. So in the packets, you do have the staff memo from, it's still the same one that was in your packets in May when we had to table this item because of a quorum issue. There are recommendations for the three different items. I recommend that the commission, consider the new information in your packets, and does that address the concerns that were raised and the questions that you had back in March? And if you feel that that is adequate, in that case, I would recommend you could approve it. There are recommended conditions in there that I've worked with the town attorney on, Michael here. And if there's other information that you'd request at this time, you could certainly do that from the applicants. I believe there is a time limit on the approval though, and that's something where we may be approaching that at this meeting. I'd just like to clarify that with the attorney. If you have specific questions for me, I'm happy to answer them as well if I can.
Does anybody have any questions for Rachel?
I do, Madam Chair. It's just a point of clarification because unless I missed it in here when I read through this a couple of times, and it has to do with the maintenance of this berm, because the work order that was supplied as part of the packet only mentions the maintenance of the grass within the fence area. It does not refer to any maintenance of the berm. And I just thought it would be a good idea for posterity to clarify, I assume in the plan of operation would be the appropriate place to put it, as far as how often that berm gets mowed. So 10 years from now, no, I mean, the question comes up, we've got it taken care of.
Okay, is Mr. Strankman here? Would you like to come up and?
Hello?
No, hello.
Yeah, as far as inside of the fence, we have the maintenance, we're responsible for that. As far as outside the fence, that would be, Hans here could speak to that.
So what we plan to do was just use our traditional.
Can you use the microphone? for
Sorry,
the record?
that way we have a record.
Thank you. And who are you?
Hans Dawson with Land and Stone
Thank
Products,
you.
N52 W23096 Lisbon Road. So what we'll do is we'll put our normal prairie mix on there and then we'll just let it go. So what we find what works the best for buffering properties is actually just to let it grow, because the more vegetation buffers more sound and all that stuff. So yeah, we were not planning on maintaining it.
Okay, because, excuse me, I'm just looking on page 4 of Rachel's remarks on this, and it mentions that the berm shall be mowed and maintained on a regular basis, similar to that of a normal lawn maintenance or as determined by the town plan commission. All I'm trying to do is to clarify this, put it in writing in the plan of operation. So 15 years from now, if somebody says, well, it's clear in here in black and white for everybody's protection.
Bobby, was that our application or was that a recommendation from?
I think it was a staff recommendation.
Right, it's a review comment on
Okay.
page 3 of 4, Rachel.
Three.
I mean,
Yeah, if it's all right, I would prefer not to. I think it would look much better growing naturally.
well, I just would suggest that whatever goes in the plan of operation that's approved by the plan commission, state what is agreed to, so there's no question in the future. Because
Right.
having lived next to people with berms, various individuals have different ideas of what maintenance of a berm is. I just trying to make it clear so that everybody is on the same page. That's all. It's not that big of a deal, but sometimes it is to other people.
So are we hearing we should take that verbiage out of the staff report? So it clarifies that they are not going to maintain, that they're putting in the prairie grass? So it's,
Well,
Excuse me,
Go ahead.
if I could comment. You know, the town does have prairies and they do burn them off every several years. Otherwise, they can become fire hazards, and also it renews the prairies. So I'm not sure that we should just eliminate that type of language. We should at least have something in there because it could become a fire hazard at some point if it gets very dry. So I feel a little uncomfortable saying it's not going to be maintained at all. I think we should have something in it that allows us to at least order them or say that upon the request of the town that it will be cut and with the prairie maybe reseeded. I'm not sure exactly if that's, you know, what you want to maintain. That we could leave it up to the fire department as to whether or not something like that should be done.
I'd be fine with that. You know, if the fire department wanted to request that, we can do that. I mean, that'd be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, so just to be clear then, would this affect the recommended conditions for both the landscape, for the berm, major grading permit, and the site plan of operation? This came out of the berm review and it's just kind of a standard staff comment. but
Right.
it could be
I was
slightly
trying to
modified.
clarify the difference between inside the fence and outside the fence,
Okay.
specifically regarding the berm, which is meant to be a buffer to the adjacent property owners. I was referring specifically to the berm maintenance. So it's clear on everybody's part, whatever, and I would think that that would go under the plan of operation since it's a continuing item, but it's whatever you feel is appropriate, Rachel.
I think that sounds great.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
That's all I have.
Anyone else have any questions for the Dawsons, sorry, the Strankman or Rachel? No?
I have, I guess, some clarification just from reviewing the material, and I have to apologize. I have not had the opportunity to do this. I first saw it a week ago. I'm new to the Plan Commission. And just reviewing it, and I did not see certain things that I thought should be there, and whether or not I just missed it, I don't know. But, you know, you're talking about some mechanicals on there, like a transformer and stuff. Is that in a contained area in case of a leakage or anything like that?
As far as,
Some transformers have oil.
yeah. No, it's just on a pad, like a standard transformer would be. but it's not contained inside of any kind of enclosure or anything.
Okay, I didn't mean like a physical.
Sure, sure,
but ju-
yeah.
Just like a lip on the thing, so if it leaks, it wouldn't run off that pad and into the groundwater.
We don't have it designed that way right now. No,
Okay.
typically they're just on a precast pad that the utility installs. It'll be installed by the utility. It won't be our transformer. So it'll be standard to every transformer that they install.
Okay. If that's the standard, that's fine by me. The other thing I didn't see, and excuse my ignorance, how is the electricity being moved off of here? I didn't see anything where, you know, a new line was going to be run or anything like that. Is there some existing line there already?
Sure, that's a good question. Yeah, there's a transformer already in at Stark Pavement. So they're gonna run a line and extend off of the Stark Pavement transformer and just run it over to our field. So they'll run straight south from the Stark Pavement service and then over to our service alongside of the edge of the gravel pad that they installed out there.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Oh, no, it's all us down here. Anybody else have anything that they want to bring up or question? Okay,
And I
then-
did talk to the fire chief about, you know, making sure they have access all the way around and everything, and sent him our plan, and he confirmed that that was good with them, with the Lisbon Fire Department. So we can talk to him also about the berm and everything. And we've
Okay.
offered, you know, come out and do training for the firemen out there, so they're familiar with the site and how to work safely around it if they were to have to come out there, so.
Okay,
just wanted
All
to
right.
mention that.
then we're looking for a motion, either to approve or deny.
Just for clarification, you're asking for a motion on what? There's 3 separate items here.
No, we're on the
Just
one
on
we
the
just
first one?
talked about, the conditional use permit for a solar installation. That's the one we're doing right now.
Okay.
As it relates to the maintenance aspect that was brought up, you would include in your motion as part of it, if you wish to approve tonight, include in your motion that a condition on the approval of this would be the maintenance plan acceptable as it relates to the berm, acceptable in the form of the fire department, is in addition to your motion. Does that make sense, based on the comments that were just discussed?
Michael, should that be contained within the site plan of operation or within the conditional use permit?
Let's do it actually in all 3 of these, so it is consistent across the board and clear to everybody. And that way we don't have some sort of discrepancy 10, 15, 20 years down the road, trying to figure out what actually happened.
Okay, what was the third thing you mentioned, Mike?
As far as,
What we should add to it?
Include the maintenance plan acceptable to the fire department. and what we're-
correct, yeah,
the third one.
as it relates to the berm and believe it was related to the cutting the grasses, make sure it was not growing to a length that would be more flammable than had it been cut, or you guys can make the motion how you prefer, but I'm just trying to make sure that aspect is included into it.
Maybe there were only 2. Okay, all right.
Well, I'll make the motion for the acceptance of the conditional use permit for the solar installation with the additional proviso that the maintenance of the landscape berm on the northern edge be maintained acceptable to the fire department so as to not prevent a fire hazard.
And also the comments of the planner?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, the motion was made by Joe. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. The second was made by Brian. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried 5-0. Okay, the next discussion is the amendment to the site plan and plan of operation. Rachel, what was that about?
I guess there's sort of, these are all overlapping largely. It's
Right.
So I guess the way I'd presented it was more that they were addressing comments relevant to the conditional use standards as well as a site plan of operation. So I think we do have recommended several comments in the staff memo, just trying to address the various issues that we discussed a few months ago. They mentioned that fire was consulted, so I felt like they had done the work to address the various comments, getting the approvals needed and review of the plans.
Oh, I see they're both in the same write-up.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
So kind of combine them here, just double checking if there's anything that I might have not mentioned yet related to the site plan.
Okay, well, I'm
I think we've
under the
covered that.
impression that there probably are no comments on this either. Okay, all right, we're looking for a motion then to either approve or deny the amendment to the site plan and plan of operation.
So moved with the same comments that's included with the CU.
Okay, the same comments, okay, okay. Motion was made by Jeff, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mark. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, passed 5-0. Okay, now we have the major grading conditional use permit. Rachel, is there anything, was this, I was not at the 13th of May meeting, so I don't know, was this brought up then?
It was not brought up. It was on the agenda. Did we hold the public hearing on that?
We didn't have a quorum to address the item.
That's right. So it was just not taken up at that meeting. It was tabled to this because of the
Okay,
quorum. I would just have a few comments on this one.
okay,
I guess this was also presented in March. That's right. Excuse me, we had the hearing then. But just to confirm, the town engineer did look at their berm plans as far as how this grading permit would be modified. And the comments reflect that. We've discussed the maintenance issue, which I assume would be modified as you did with the last two items. Just to confirm, this berm would be about 10 feet in height. We include comments in here about the minimum distance from property line, all of that. It seemed to be fine. Just to confirm for the applicants, this memo did mention the need to provide a typical cross-section of the berm showing their side slopes. That's a pretty standard comment for these berm reviews. And it may be in the plans now. I'm just trying to remember that we've seen multiple plan sets. I think we still need that typical cross-section, so if you could do that as a follow-up to this meeting, that would be helpful. That's the only comments I have, Becky.
okay, does anybody have any comments or questions to ask of anyone here? No? Okay, then we're looking for a motion to approve the major grading conditional use permit since we've already approved the other two.
I'll move to approve the major grading conditional use permit along with planner's comments.
You want the additional
And those
modification to the berm maintenance?
two other things?
And the maintenance plan and acceptable to the fire department, is that correct?
Okay, the motion's been made by Brian. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, second by Joe. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay, plan passes, it's approved by 5-0.
Thank you.
You're up, Mr. Osterman.
Thank you, Becky. All right, so we're going to move on to item 6 and new business. Discussion necessary action on the request by Carl Johnson and Stark Pavement on behalf of the owner Hans Dawson and Sussex West Quarry LSP LLC for the property located at North 51 West 23995 Lisbon Road, tax key LSBT 0280.992 for approval of a freestanding stone monument sign in the Q1 quarrying district.
All right, I'll just say a few words on this, just by way of introduction. This site, actually same site, same driveway, just a different petition, looking for a new sign for Stark Pavement. It'd be a monument sign made of stone placed right next to the driveway and near Lisbon Road. This map in your packet shows the sign location. Just included a few snippets here from what's in the packet, so you can see what it would be made of, what the sign would contain. It meets all the applicable setbacks. It's within the allowable size for the signage based on your new sign code adopted last year. The only comment I had was that, and I discussed this with the applicant, that some landscaping is required under your sign code, extending about 5 feet around the sign in every direction. 70% of which would have to be decorative, half of it be evergreen, and bordered by an acceptable surround. That's really acceptable in the determination of the Plan Commission. And I just recommended that that be discussed at this meeting as far as what the intent is there for landscaping. And if you find that acceptable, I would recommend approval as long as the commission finds their plans adequate. I'll leave it there.
All right, anything you want to add?
Not really. I think that largely covered it. With regards to the landscaping, yes, we'll certainly follow the town's ordinances and guidelines. So our plan was to essentially landscape with the 5 feet, radius around the sign. We'll use probably some crushed stone, similar. It is in a quarry. Want to stick with the crushed stone motif, contrary to the prior applicant's suggestion of plastic. And then, spread throughout that, we can provide the required 50% evergreen plantings. That's no problem.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
My name is Carl Johnson, Vice President, Stark Pavement Corporation.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
I have one question. And just, is the sign permit issued to the property owner or to the leasee? It's just for,
The applicant is listed as Carl Johnson of Stark, and it also lists the landowner on the application,
Right.
but I think it's issued to the applicant, correct? Yes.
okay.
Usually what we do is we have, if there's a situation where there's a lease involved, the applicant would come forward, and that would be the leasee, and then we get some sort of document signed or consent from the property owner
Okay.
to ensure that this is allowable for that individual to come forward.
The only other comment I had is on Rachel's review of June 2nd, down on the bottom, just clarification. The sentence says the applicant has indicated that the sign will, I assume the word "to" is supposed to be not.
Correct.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
thank you. That's all the comments I have, sir.
Thank you, Joe. Becky, anything for you?
Nothing.
Brian? Mark? Jeff? All right, hearing none, is there a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion. We have approved the request by Carl Johnson of Stark Pavement for the property located in North 51 West 23995 Lisbon Road for approval of a freestanding stone monument sign.
All right, is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Second by Brian. You including the comments here tonight and the landscaping?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Second's okay with that?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay. All right, any other discussion on this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. All right, item B, discussion necessary action on the request by Melissa Cataldo, I got that right too, of Innovative Signs on behalf of Janine Stiegenholler of Richmond School District for the property located at North 56th West 26530 Richmond Road, tax key LSBT 0259.989.001 for approval of a replacement monument sign with electric message center in the PI Public Institutional Zoning District. All right, is the applicant here? No?
I think she had mentioned she may or may not attend, so. Ah.
Huh.
I see a Melissa.
All right. No? I don't see.
Is the applicant on Zoom? Oh, I've got a hand raised. Hi, Beth, are you the applicant?
Yes, I'm Beth Daniel with Innovative Signs. I can represent Richmond School in this case.
Rachel, you want to start us off?
Sure. So this school location, I think you're all aware, but for the, be consistent here, located on Richmond Road next to Moraine Drive or County MD. Site is zoned PI, public and institutional. This is also a monument sign. Your sign code defines that as a sign with at least 75% of the base, the base being at least 75% the width of the sign. In this one, the columns, it has existing columns. They're looking to retrofit the sign, upgrade the middle portion that's lit, and upgrade that with currently a changeable message sign with the letters you put up, but it would be an LED in this case. In this case, the sign exceeds the maximum sign height by ordinance is 60 square feet for sign area. That would include the face and the frame. However, the sign code does allow a 20% flexibility, especially based if the applicant adds an additional amount of landscaping equal to the extra amount of sign area that is proposed. So this would use that. I assume that would be applied in this review. That would allow a sign up to 72 square feet. This one's proposed at around 65 square feet. So I think that would be acceptable. In this case, there is existing landscaping on site. And the main comment I wanted to point for Plan Commission is just, you may wish to discuss that. I think you may be more familiar with the site than I am. And I did ask the applicant to provide an image, and that's in the staff memo as well, showing what the sign area looks like now. And so it's clear that there is landscaping there. It includes some evergreen. And the question just is that acceptable for Plan Commission? Or if you have anything additional that you would need from the applicants, you could request that. I included comments in the memo as well about the specific regulations for a changeable copy sign. And that's, the applicant confirmed that, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, but they did not have any concerns with those restrictions that are in your sign code now. So it sounds like the sign is going to comply with those limitations on the changeable message portion. And this would be, of course, subject to getting the permit for it, any electrical hookups that might be needed. They could work with Brian on that. And so I'd recommend approval if you're comfortable doing so tonight.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Jeff, anything?
Yeah, I was wondering, you indicated that they say that they're going to be compliant with the illumination portion of it. That's something that I recall the initial approvals of that years ago. And there was a lot of discussion, and some of it even a little bit heated. And one of the main concerns was anything that's going to change real fast or change colors, or it can be a distraction to drivers in the area, and particularly around the school. I take that to heart, and I'd like to put it right in the conditional use, the language that that's contained in the code with respect to that, and say, you got to abide by these specific things, so they have it right in front of them. Not that they have to come to the town to say, okay, what exactly was that again?
Would you like to reference the code, Jeff, or do you want the actual verbiage in there? No, I'm not asking you to reference the code. I mean, so like if our code changes in the next couple of years, but they have their conditional use, the verbiage would stay the same on the restrictions, you mean, or just?
Yeah, just as long as it's consistent with the code, correct?
Okay.
Yeah, reference the code, yeah.
And there's a specific section of the code that would be section 5H, but the heading is called illumination standards.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you want to reference the specific section or just say illumination standards in the Lisbon sign code.
Yeah, I think make it more general, like that second standards as contained in the code.
Okay. Anything else? Joe? Mark?
I just had one question. It looks like this is going to be a lot more sign area. And I'm a little bit concerned about the neighbors across the street. How much light are we pushing across Richmond Road over towards those residences there?
is this sign going to dim at night is essentially,
Pardon me?
like, is the sign going to dim at nighttime?
Yeah, I mean,
Good question.
The applicant on Zoom is raising her hand. Would you like her to
Oh,
speak
yeah,
to that?
leave her off of- Yep.
Beth, go ahead.
Thank you. The sign is not facing residential. It is facing the old carousel lot. And I believe the code says that the sign needs to be dimmed at 11 PM. The sign is angled toward the road. So it's not perpendicular to the road. It's not parallel to the road. It's angled toward the triangle, as you show on your map there.
So Beth, is the sign going to dim at 11 PM?
They can program it to do that, yes.
Okay. I think that's what, for.
Yeah, and I know you're concerned about the regulations for EMCs. I did forward that back over to the superintendent today to see if they had any comments or concerns, and they.
Beth, you're getting real mumble, you're not mumble, but real muffled.
Sorry, is that better?
Go again.
So anyway, they reviewed it again today, and they have no problems. They had no concerns with the way the code reads as far as the use of the sign.
I didn't hear what you said. We're having a real hard time hearing you. School superintendent.
The superintendent.
So the school superintendent has no problem with abiding by the code. Is that
Correct.
And this is Rachel again, just to clarify, the sign ordinance says it may not be lit between 11 PM and sunrise. So not just that it has to dim, it has to be actually off during those hours. But it should be equipped with controls that it could be, to control the light level while it's in operation as well. That's all in your code, correct?
okay? So as it gets darker out, it's going to have to dim, and then at 11 o'clock, it's going to shut off.
Correct.
And that's all programmable.
And it will do that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Joe? You got something else, Joe?
It just, the sign is not across from the old drive-in, it's across from that residence, according to the order code, just so it's clear.
You're not moving the sign, right, Beth?
That is correct. There's no movement of those pillars. They're staying right where they were.
Mark,
I'm good.
that addresses?
Yep.
Okay. Brian?
Nothing from me.
Becky?
Nothing from me.
Anything else from staff? All right. Is there a motion on this item?
I'll move approval on the request by Melissa Cataldo and Innovative Science on behalf of Gene Siegenthaler of the Richmond School District for the property located at North 56 West 26530 Richmond Road, LSBT 0259.989.001 for approval of replacement monument sign with electronic message center, EI Public Institutional Zoning District, pursuant to compliance with the planner's comments and the ordinance as discussed.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
By Jeff? Any final discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you very much.
All right, item C, discussion and necessary action on the request by applicant John Wellenkamp and Kenny Architects on behalf of the owner Shane Wagle for Waukesha County DPW for the property located at North 51 West 23093 Lisbon Road, tax key LSBT 0284.993. The approval of an amended site plan and plan of operation related to the replacement of an above-ground fuel tank and installation of a canopy as part of a public works infrastructure project. How you doing?
Great, good evening. John Wallenkamp, CUNY Architects, 7305 West Wisconsin Avenue.
All right. Rachel, you want to start us off on this one?
Sure thing. So I have the images in your packet, the maps just for context showing the site along Lisbon Road here near Duplainville Road and the railroad tracks. The site actually has split zoning. It's got part of it is public and institutional, PI. The eastern end is B3 business, but the proposed project that would modify the site is entirely within the PI portion of the site. So those are the zoning district standards that were used for this review. It just shows the location. There are 4 tanks located towards the rear of the site, the south edge, back behind everything. There's currently a 5,000 gallon fuel tank, if I have that right. That'd be replaced with a larger 10,000 gallon tank that also would contain an overhead canopy to protect drivers. They use this tank for fueling the county's fleet vehicles. And my understanding is the sheriff's department uses it as well. This was, so the canopy would be a new addition. It's getting upgrades to mechanicals and other features associated with the tank. The existing tanks, staff was not able to find record of any approvals previously for the tanks as part of any site plan. That's not uncommon, especially with older sites, but the tanks were not complying with any setbacks, which may or may not be an issue for a tank per se, but certainly for the canopy proposed that it would have to meet a 50-foot offset from the rear south lot line, which is very different from the current location. So for that reason, the applicants had to go to the Board of Appeals last month, and they just did that. The Board of Appeals did grant the variance for this particular setback, and that would enable them to come before you tonight with their site plan of operation as proposed. So included on the slides, just a couple of details from their plans showing the existing setup, the proposed setup. There is a small wall kind of behind this tank to the south, closer to the lot line. Might be because of fire, I believe, or protective barrier, because these are close to the lot line. That would remain in place. So the only change would be the tank and the canopy. A few just key points to mention. The plans show existing landscaping. I just want to confirm with the Plan Commission believes that it's sufficient. I mean, whenever you get a site plan of operation, you have the ability to require changes or ask questions along those lines. That's one item you could discuss if you wish. The fire marshal confirmed no concerns at this time. Any details currently based on the plans he said would be worked out as part of the building permit process. So he was fine with the plans as far as they're presented to you tonight. The other thing was outdoor storage. I just mentioned in the staff memo, I mean, you know the nature of the site, but with any site plan, that's just kind of a comment I would make, that if you wish to discuss outdoor storage or have any concerns with the site in its current form, you could address that as part of your approval. Otherwise, the comments are in the staff packet. We're kind of looked at it from a detailed standpoint. It's the ordinance and put some conditions of approval recommended in there if you feel comfortable acting on those tonight. They're fairly standard, taken from other similar types of site plan approvals. And with the one that's a little bit unique is the condition that the tanks and the protective wall should be removed at the end of their useful life. I haven't heard that that's a concern from the applicants, but that was recommended.
Yeah, that would have to be going through with the county. Usually at the useful life, it's going to be a replacement of the tank, similar to what we're in right now. The useful life is met with the existing tank. That's why we're going through the replacement. Unless the site and operations change 25 years from now, I think it would be addressed back at that point.
It would be a condition of approval tonight that would happen, is what you're saying, though. There's no issue with, I mean, you either replace it with something at that point or remove it.
Correct. At that point, it would have to come back anyways because it's a conditional use of the site. So it's similar to what we're doing now from the previous installation.
And I guess the only other thing I did not mention is lighting. I did not require a full-on photometric plan or anything, but I did ask for details on the lighting under the canopy, and you described that. You'd have some lights underneath, two that would be on at night, and another one, if I understand correctly, would go on when a vehicle actually goes in there to use
Correct.
the tank and fill up.
The main light would be dusk to dawn, just to give some illumination. Once a vehicle pulls in, it'd be motion type and it'd activate all the lights to go on.
So the lights that are going to be put in, as far as, there's one residence there to the northeast, and there'll be no light offshooting onto the property.
Correct. These are full down, directional down lights.
Are they kind of inset underneath the canopy in a way? that
Correct.
they
They're
can be
recessed up
shielded?
into the
Okay.
canopy soffit, typically what you'd see at a filling station.
Thank you.
Tom, what the county is here is if there's any questions on operational with the facility too.
Anything else? No. All right. Comments from the board?
Is the county agreeable to the provision and the recommendation about no outside storage of materials? Because I'm concerned about making that a condition of approval if it's not something that's not going to happen.
I would say we'd need to talk to the county. That's new to me, that it was tagged with this piece.
Yes.
So I think based on the operation of that site, it's probably pretty difficult.
That's what I'm getting at. I don't want to impose upon something that's not going to be able to be complied with. It doesn't make any sense.
Good evening. My name's Tom Zimbrowski. I am the fleet manager for Waukesha County. I oversee the maintenance and the procurement of the vehicles for the county and all the fuel infrastructure. So your question is, you want to
Well-
make sure that we're not going to store things outside at the facility?
Right now, one of the recommendations from the planner is that there shall be no outside storage of materials other than as noted on the approved plans, which is 0. My question to the county is, can you live with that requirement if we make that part of the approval?
That's a good question. I would say right now, we don't traditionally store anything outside anyway, because the two main buildings, we want to keep all of our equipment inside.
Right.
I've been up there many times, and I don't foresee any type of issue where we're leaving stuff outside. We don't traditionally work night shift. We do sometimes if we do road closures, but we keep our equipment inside. And especially during the winter months, and that obviously we want to keep out of the elements. So,
Here's what my concern is. I happened to drive into that site this weekend because I was going by.
Sure.
And I couldn't figure out where this tank was going from the aerial photograph. So I
Sure.
drove into the site and there was a pile of logs in there that somebody was working on, which I don't care. But what I'm concerned about is if we make that a condition of approval and somebody drives by there and sees 15 rolls of snow fence sitting out in the middle of the parking lot, they're going to come back to the town and say, well, the condition of their approval is there's an outside storage of anything. I'm trying to avoid an issue.
Sure.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
I specifically worded it to say other than as noted on the approved plans. So that's a
Right.
condition we've used for other sites. So it might be an option if, I mean, you could make that condition go away. That's an option as well, of
Yes.
course. But you could also have them note on the plans where you typically do store materials, even if it's temporarily. And if it's on the plans, I would think that would be covered.
Right. There's nothing on the plans right now. So that's what I'm getting at. I'm not trying to make a huge case out of this thing, but I don't want to impose something that's not going to be complied with. And if you can't live with that, then we need to discuss whether or not we're going to put this recommended thing in there. Because there's nothing shown on the plans for outside storage right now at all.
Correct.
I think we can easily update the plan and just put the miscellaneous pieces that do occasionally put on the site, so it's part of the package. We can easily do that.
I would be fine with that if that's fine with your operation. I'm not trying to curtail
Oh,
the
no.
county's operation because
It's fine. I would say that a little bit of flexibility for the county would be, like I said, if there's like some snow fence out there or something like that, I think we would like some kind of flexibility in regards to how we, take care of our constituents and things like that. But yeah, I don't foresee us really having a ton of stuff out there.
We don't go looking for problems.
Yes.
But they tend to find us.
I serve on the planning commission
Especially
for my
lately.
village, so I'm very much aware of how these things work.
I'm
So
trying to avoid an issue.
I appreciate that.
Maybe just identifying where it could be stored and then.
Yeah.
That would
we
be
can-
fine with me.
You good with letting staff
Yes.
approve that?
Yes.
Okay. I am too. Anyone else in the plan commission have an issue with that? All right. Okay, anything else, Joe?
Nothing.
Jeff?
One thing that came to mind when we were talking about this particular site is that, gosh, it has to be 15 years ago or more. We had an ordinance modified to require any businesses to, if they have a dumpster, to have it shielded. And I remember contacting the county at that time, he had a dumpster at that site, and said, could you, put some sort of a shield in front of it? I don't recall that ever being done. Of course, I haven't paid much attention to it in a long time. So I don't know if you say we can address an issue like that in this approval, to have that screened, the dumpster screened. And if it's a problem, that you can't do it, I think we can live with that also. But I do believe it is in our code unless it's been modified since then.
Yeah, it is still in the code.
Yeah.
That is a recommended condition, actually, that they be either screened or located to be screened from view of the street.
Right.
So that, to give them some options for how to do that. It's just a suggestion.
Yeah.
Any problem?
No. Whatever the recommendation is, we will make sure we follow it.
That's fine. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you, Jeff. Mark?
No, I'm good.
Brian?
I'm good.
Becky?
I'm good.
Anything else from staff?
Nope.
You're good?
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time tonight.
All right.
Is there a motion?
We'll have to have a motion.
Okay, sorry.
Looking for a motion on this item.
I can make a motion to approve the request by Waukesha County for the property located in N51 W23093 Lisbon Road. Tax key number 0284.993 for approval of amended site plan and plan of operation related to replacement of an above-ground fuel tank and installation of canopy as part of a Public Works infrastructure project with a modified site plan as approved by staff.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Brian, any other discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. All right, item D, discussion necessary action on a request by applicant David Baum, owner Naja Hadam, for the property located at County Highway K and Corey Corners Parkway, LSPT 0284.994.001, for approval of a conditional use permit for a truck wash in the B4 local business zoning district. How you doing?
Pretty good. David Baum with Schrader and Holt Architects, architect for the project. With me is Amin Hamdid and Jenny Burns from my office.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Rachel.
All right. So this site here located on Corey Corners Parkway, as you indicated. This site is unique. It's also at the corner of Lisbon Road or County Highway K and County Highway F. So it's bounded on 3 sides or all sides by a roadway. It's got this long pork chop shape due to the way this was laid out near the highway. The site is zoned B4. It's the commercial special use district in your zoning code. And a recommended land use for the long term is commercial and office. So this is a fit with both the long range plans of the town as far as commercial use. Some other key points here. So the site is 4.6 acres. The project that they're proposing would be to build a 5,100 square foot truck wash facility here for larger diesel trucks, commercial operations, about a parking lot and circulation area around 47,500 square feet. They've started this project at least in October 2019, possibly earlier, but that was before my time working with the town. But I was aware of this in early 2020. They did come to the joint Lisbon Sussex Plan Commission, which still existed back in March of 2020. They were still exploring with Lisbon how this would be processed, because at the time, and this has recently changed, but prior to their application submittal, a truck wash was not listed as a permitted or conditional use in the zoning code. So for that reason, they came to the town with discussions on how that could be processed. Would it be a suitable use? The town at that time, I think among staff, I don't think they came to Plan Commission, but went to the Joint Plan Commission. They determined that that should be a fit with the B4 district at that time, general sense of it, and recommended that it could be processed as an unspecified conditional use in the zoning code, unless the zoning code were changed. The town has recently updated changes that do list this as a conditional use, so just to point that out. But this was reviewed under the previous ordinance just because of the timing of when their application was submitted. A few key pieces here, and I've got the site plan up on the screen, but they would have 6 full-time employees, 2 part-time. They would have 2 access points off of Quarry Corners Parkway, so enabling one-way circulation through the site, at least for
Correct.
the large trucks. Operating hours, and this one just has a lot of pieces to it, so I've put more talking points, I guess. Monday through Saturday, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. would be the operating hours for people to use the site. You described standard trucking hours as 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., but the idea was that people could drop off their large trucks. There's obviously a lot of trucks with quarries and other operations in the town. They've indicated there's a lot of demand for this, so people would need to drop off their trucks so that they could keep working, but then the trucks would be washed between the hours of 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., if I have that right. Other kind of highlights of their plan right now and the status, the stormwater plan, last I heard, is being coordinated with the county. So if you have updates on that, you might share those tonight. Lighting, there's other comments in the staff report. So just to clarify, tonight on the agenda is just the conditional use for the operation, but their intent is to come back at a subsequent meeting, either next month or the following month, for the site plan of operation and for their major grading permit. So what they've submitted so far with the conditional use is we can call it a draft site plan, but it's really, as far as they had taken it at the time, just for comment. So there are staff review comments that have been offered, I guess a couple of rounds, just based on the standards in the B4 zoning district. The site is also subject to special design standards as part of the Lisbon-Sussex intergovernmental agreement. And those are almost identical to what's in addendum E of your zoning code. It gets a little convoluted, but basically this has a lot of extra standards that apply because of the location of the site as a gateway, a very highly visible site in the community, and has a history of expectations with regard to Lisbon and Sussex that was built into that agreement. So that's why I also have comments on lighting and signage, some of the details here, trying to keep them at a level that relates to a conditional use permit, but of course, you can discuss as you see fit. It did not require a full photometric lighting plan at this time, but that's something I would expect to see with their site plan submittal when they come back. Signage, they've indicated on their plans they would like to have a pole or pylon sign at the northwest corner, 1 monument sign at the driveway entrance, and 1 on-building sign. We've shared the sign code with the applicant, so they're aware of what those standards are, and we might have to discuss as you firm up the details, but I understand that's in the works. Trash and recycling, none is proposed outdoors. I recommend that be a discussion point, just given the nature of the use and if it might be wise to have something outdoors, but I'll leave it there. Plans were shared with the fire marshal, and I believe coordination is ongoing. So if you have any updates on that, please share tonight. One thing, the sort of a technical point in the B4 zoning district in your zoning code, it specifies that you can allow other uses that aren't specifically listed. If the Lisbon Town Board finds 3 things: that it's consistent with the intent of the district and the uses listed, that the use is safe, clean, would not cause hardship to neighboring property owners from noise, pollution, and so on. That's very similar to the conditional use standards also. And that the Town of Lisbon and Sussex Joint Plan Committee has received and considered it. Of course, that committee no longer exists, but they have actually considered it. So I think all of those are met, but I mentioned this because the town board would not normally need to approve this conditional use, but because of this language in the ordinance, I think they may need to. But that's typically a question I would put to the attorney. I just wanted to point that out. So tonight you're making a recommendation or a motion, you might want to recommend town board and do that unless the attorney finds that not necessary. The main 5 criteria for a conditional use permit, those are covered in the staff report. I have a number of comments that I think they're generally, I don't see any major red flags, but I think it's just a unique kind of use that wanted to get the Plan Commission's feedback on this as to how these 5 criteria are met. I think it's, from what I can gauge on the use, I think there's likely to be some noise, but it's not unusual, and it's a busy intersection that's already noisy, so in that context, not surprising. As far as the impacts to other properties and value, it seems to me that the evidence they provided, it does address that. The surrounding lands are generally zoned and planned for pretty intensive uses that are commercial and industrial in nature. So there's a lot to be said about how this would fit with that and support these surrounding land uses. There is a residential parcel a couple of lots down to the east but that's the only one from what I can tell in the vicinity, so that there's not much residential in the nearby area. I do think that a couple of things that warrant further review and discussion would be the layout of the site. Just a couple of things that I had noted because of the special design standards, the parking lot also has to be set back 50 feet. So I think there is some redoing there, needs to be shifting over to get that parking lot to fit with that 50-foot setback. Truck queuing and turn movements, I would recommend seeing a little more information, perhaps an exhibit, and showing how the trucks would move to the site, how they would access those parking stalls, and how would that be done in a way that wouldn't damage the site, for example, turf and landscaping, because landscaping standards are fairly robust on this site, again, because of the design standards. So if there's going to be a lot of landscaping required and it's a highly visible site, I would recommend that just measures be taken to confirm that that won't be destroyed by the trucks, just given the nature of this operation. I mentioned the criteria we reviewed against. Parking lot landscaping. I'm really looking for, I tried to include and a lot of this is specific to the site plan of operation again, but the design standards are very specific and detailed, and they cover a lot of issues, and a lot of those, especially if they relate to special public spaces or pedestrian movement, it's hard to know exactly how to apply that to a site like this, given the type of business. So I'm looking for plan commission feedback tonight to the applicant on whether the plans are, fitting with those design standards, or if there are specific places that they need to modify the plans in order to meet the standards. And even though there's no longer a joint plan committee with Sussex, I just mentioned that because that's the context that those standards were created under, and you know the landscape better than I do, but what are you comfortable approving or requiring of the applicants? And I'd be happy to discuss if you have questions on anything that I've included in the staff memo, but I'll leave it there for now.
Questions from the board? There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff to go over.
I have a number of questions for the applicant. First of all, are you planning on just washing truck exteriors? Are you thinking that this facility may also wash the inside of trucks, like tankers?
Yes, we are anticipating washing the inside of tankers in the area.
Okay,
For
so I assume that we're going to see state-approved plumbing plans for this thing?
Eventually, yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, because that is a whole different realm of that, because the first thing that pops into my mind is, and I know that the plans haven't been developed to this point yet, but where's the sampling manhole on this thing, and where's all this water gonna go, and what's in it and everything else?
Correct.
I mean, there's a lot more, for want of a better term, meat to put on the bones on this thing. I'm concerned about where all this water is gonna go, including all the snow storage, because there's an awful lot of pavement there. I realize it's a unique site, and I just think that there's a lot more information that I'd like to see before this goes forward, because I realize that some of this gets into the plan of operation and that, but before we get into that part of it, it's seeing how all this whole thing's gonna operate. Because we've got a large amount of pavement, we've got a very peculiar shaped site, we've got to put a stormwater pond on there, we've got to put this water someplace, we've got to have, where's this water gonna be coming from? And I'm sorry, but I don't agree with the statement that there's gonna be nothing that's gonna come out of this thing that may not be hazardous, and that because golly knows what's gonna come off of a truck or out of a tanker. And I think that there's a lot more work that needs to be done on this for a conditional use permit to be agreed to by myself, because I just think there's too much stuff that we're still looking for.
Okay, so the conditional use, we believe, was granted to us back in 2019. The reason why we're bringing it up today is because we've enhanced that with the parking facility. So in the plan of operation, yes, there are a lot of specific details, but without a approval of the conditional use, will you accept this here? Will you accept the parking? We really can't proceed forward. If we're not gonna accept this use, then we don't want to get into all the engineering of all those detailed things. All those things will be accommodated and will have to go through the state code process.
Has a conditional use permit been issued for this?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Through the joint review board when we were here back then,
That's a recommending body.
recommending body.
That doesn't-
That's what I'm referring to, is that
Okay.
group gave us, yes, it's an acceptable use.
So we're talking tonight about a CUP for this facility. And, okay, I guess I understand the predicament somewhat that you're in before you go to C, D, and E before you get to A and B, but I just believe there's a lot more information that has been brought up in the planner's comments, including the architecture of this thing. I mean, the whole site of the building adjacent to 164 to F is, there's not a window in that thing. It's just a big, solid, massive masonry. And especially given the fact that this is supposed to be a part of the gateway area for that intersection, I believe that we need some more information and some changes on it. That's comments I have.
I do, yes. I'll say I did give a fairly thorough rundown of the various standards that apply and a copy of the complete design standards to the applicants in March. So this has been an ongoing conversation, and this is where the plans are at the moment.
Yeah, so the latest plans, we do have windows on all four sides of the building. If you would prefer, we could turn the building around and put the office section on the 164 side of the building to put more architectural adornment on that side. That'll give you more articulation in the plan and elevation. And additional windows for the office space.
I was just wondering if I've got the correct information, because what I've got here is there's 3 high bay windows and that's it.
Correct. Well, that's correct on the current plan, but if you want, I can rotate the building 180 degrees and put the office side on 164, which would bring the office windows onto that side as well.
Didn't you just state there's windows on all of the corners?
No, on all 4 sides. The gray boxes are the windows.
Up here?
Yes.
Now that's
Clear story windows at the top. Recognize the bottom is the wash bay, and we're hosing it down, putting windows in the wash bay. They're just gonna rust out.
We just need some kind of, it's long and monotonous. I mean, some kind of breakup in it is, like you look down at Gordy's concrete pump, how there's some kickouts in the building that helped,
Certainly.
you know, doesn't look like just a wall.
If that's all you're looking for on the bar,
Well, we're not saying that's all, it's just,
Yeah.
it's recommend, this is something we
Sure.
did somewhere else.
I just believe that if, given my limited experience and knowledge of what this gateway area is supposed to look like, to me, this isn't all it could be for that type of an area. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, I don't profess to be an architect. I'm just a old engineer, but I believe that something else can be done on this facility to make it more, if this is supposed to be a gateway, is this the first thing we're gonna see? If you look at the 4 corners there, there's nothing else available on the other 3 corners, because that's the way that it is. But this is the only building that anybody's gonna see in that whole district. And I believe that this can be made better looking.
So future planning, this is going to be the only building at that intersection.
Correct, which to me makes it more important that this be something other than what is presented.
So we're having a gateway of 1 is what we're analyzing.
But you also need to be aware of, This is a gateway area as identified by the 301 border agreement with the Village of Sussex, so they are going to have say on this.
Yes.
And they will have say in it.
Okay.
And they're going to look at this, and, because if you look right across the street is their sign that says, "Welcome to the Village of Sussex." And we just had a meeting last night about how much they want to make sure this area is,
Top notch.
yes.
Okay,
So,
we can take that into consideration.
And the staff comments can be a little squishy on these because I wasn't sure how much flexibility you actually have to bend on the design standards.
I
Or
don't
if they
think
have to
any.
be, I'm assuming.
I would
there wasn't
say
much
bending, there's no bending.
Okay.
I would say would be the answer to that.
I didn't want to come off too harsh in the comments, but I know you have a lot
Sure.
to contend with, so.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume zero bending.
Okay.
Because I'm sure that's how it's gonna be, and that's how we made out with the border agreement, that we would follow it,
That makes sense.
so. You had no,
That's it I had, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I know that's a lot, but I just believe that this can be better. And then, given the fact that of this gateway, I can think it requires a step up for that. And then all these other questions, which may be appropriate more when we get to the plan of operation and everything else. I realize that the applicant's looking for the conditional use to go before they go to the next 4 or 5 steps. But I just question whether or not all the pieces and parts can be fit on this site and how they're going to work.
Which additional pieces? The water detention, the tanks,
Yeah.
all those parts?
Right. I mean,
There's-
can you get everything that you need on here, including stormwater, all the recycling, whatever's gonna get done, and the sampling and everything else? Can you fit that all within the building envelope, the site area that's there, is the question that I have. Because there's a lot of pieces and parts, and you probably know better,
Yes.
I'm sure, more than I do, but I started putting the list together when I started going over these plans. I'm going like, holy Christmas, there's a lot of stuff that's gotta go on
Yes.
here.
And in general, we believe we can get it all to fit once we start working with all the different players to bring it all together.
Right.
But I can't work with all the players and put all of that together
Yes,
without knowing whether I can put this building on the site at all.
I understand.
are you anticipating a holding tank or?
Yes, we're looking at a holding tank. We're looking at a recirculation tank for gray water. We're looking at a tank for dirty water too. So we got 3 separate tanks that we're looking to put into this property.
And how, as far as the stormwater, I know you don't, anticipation of how it's going to
Stormwater,
flow.
our engineer has placed the stormwater at the southern end of the site. If you, whoever's controlling it, can you just, there's a detention cell at the bottom of the drawing that's on the screen now, where the hand is. And that has been coordinated with Waukesha County Engineering for size, shape, and quantity of infiltration.
Is there any concern as far as with storm, I mean, it's a truck wash on the way out there, but it should be clean.
Correct.
Obviously, on the way in, they're not gonna be. I guess that's maybe some of what's being, you're thinking of, Joe?
Yes.
Is when these things are coming in, they're not necessarily, where's that gonna go? When that's falling off the trucks and such? Because if that's going into the stormwater pond, is that gonna be an issue? Is there any kind of special handling that's gonna be
Right,
needed?
and I expect that the county, in their review of the stormwater plan for this, when it's finalized or when it's being finalized, is going to take into account that it may require extraordinary measures as far as maintenance of that pond from all the stuff that's going to be going into it. And I know that you're working with the county on that, but these things start concerning me.
Correct.
And, you just mentioned the infiltration word, and how far down can you go under? How far can you infiltrate? I don't know. I know the rock's pretty close to the ground
2
there
feet.
if you look at the other 3 corners, but,
It's only 2 feet down to bedrock. So
Okay.
that's why everything had to be really coordinated with the county,
right,
because we don't have the depth and we're right on top of bedrock.
right,
So our engineer is working with them specifically on,
okay,
with all that information.
okay.
Excuse me, realize you're not, Lisbon
Just
is the
state your-
only town that doesn't have any, is that working?
Yes,
Okay. it doesn't have any sewer or water. That's my problem. The whole, everybody else in the area's got sewer and water, even Sussex does. Nobody wanna invest, especially you guys, they wanna invest anything except in a certain area. And it's hard to get sewer working without, so we're doing what we can with the holding tank and putting something that, I've been sitting on that site for 7 years. I can't imagine what else can be put, so.
Part of it, what that goes with that restriction of not having the sewer and water is what we allow and where it can go. Now, there is no sewer and water there at this point in time. There may be in the future, but right now there isn't. So we are where we are, as Kathy would say.
And
Kathy, but
and
it's,
talking about the noise, we got the quarries,
yeah.
we got the Mr. Always with all the dirt on earth, he's making all the noise and it's all the dust. So it just, we're trying to clean up those trucks, trying to make sure that when they go on the road, it'll be nice and clean and safe.
So the thing with conditional uses is once we grant them, you're going there. I mean, the granting of this conditional use, once we do that, it's hard to come back and say you're not going there, correct, Mike? I mean, so once we do this, we're starting the train.
True.
So we need to make sure that this is gonna work, and you have to give substantial evidence to the fact that it will meet all the conditions of our conditional uses at this point in time.
So can we, as a condition, can we put a condition on the approval that all the issues have to be addressed? Otherwise,
I don't think you're gonna get votes for that. You're not gonna get mine. So you have to give substantial evidence that you're gonna meet all these conditions, and that's why with some of the things Joe's bringing up here tonight, we have to be cautious.
Correct. So you want us to go through all the engineering and all of that documentation, bring basically a full set of construction documents for the water and the engineering and bring all that
I don't believe
forward?
that's what he just said.
No.
He's looking for, we wanna make sure that, and I don't wanna paraphrase for
Right,
him, but
and my personal opinion is this site needs to be proved that it'll work. And right now, I'm not convinced it'll work. I'm not personally asking for full-blown construction plans for this thing to cover everything from A to Z. But I'm not convinced that with all the requirements that are gonna be necessary for this operation, will work on that site. It hasn't been shown to me, and I'm concerned that I don't want to open up Pandora's box here with a conditional use that we can't undo it. And that's my opinion. I just think there's too many, I understand the predicament that you and the owner are in, but somebody's got to prove to me that this site will work, and I'm not convinced right now it'll work.
Okay, so Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard you say earlier is this use is now, an approved conditional use for this location, or it is?
It's listed as a conditional use that the B4 district would
Will
allow,
accept.
but it would still require this
The conditional
specific
approval.
meeting, right?
Okay, it is an allowable conditional use as long as we get conditional approval.
Right.
Okay. To what documentation, how far do you need me to go to prove that this will work? What is enough to say yes?
I can only speak for myself. What I need to see to satisfy myself, I need to know that the stormwater is going to work, that the ancillary facilities for the operation of the facility will fit and it will work. And that's the two things the main things that I'm concerned about. There's stormwater facilities and the operational facilities, all that has to be there, and that you're going to be able to achieve what's necessary for the effluent coming out of this facility. What I'm concerned about is something's going to get into that pond that's washed out of or off of a truck, and we're going to have a problem there, especially given the very, very shallow depth of bedrock there. And now we've got a real problem. And I don't want to see that any more than I'm sure that the owner or you want to see that. But right now, no one has shown me that will work here.
Preliminary drawings?
We've heard that you guys were working, if I may, with the county,
Yes.
but back more than a year ago in March of 2020, it was discussed, like, would you have a plan? Will you be willing to bring one forward to discuss how you're going to treat effluent? What will you do with stormwater? All of those specific things were part of that discussion back then, and that was over a year ago. So I feel like some level of engineering to really show how this will function and a little more information. That I know I have asked for, where are things at with the county? I mean, it would be helpful to know what specific standards they are applying to the site. I mean, we have the town engineer on the line, but he has not reviewed the plans yet, knowing that that's still so preliminary. But I think, as the commissioner is saying, something a little further along to just show where are these facilities, like, whether it's tanks or, I didn't know if they would have a septic, where are those things going to be located?
Correct.
Like, some take a stab at it and showing it on the site plan would really go a long way to showing how this would work.
Okay.
Meeting
Who
the
else
minimum
is-
setbacks, for example, like, there's a lot of things that frankly staff has commented on that just haven't even been addressed yet with this site plan. So I think there's already a lot of things put in writing that you could do to get the
Okay.
plans to another level without going 100% engineering plans, but.
But it seems that the biggest issue is the plumbing engineering, the site utility engineering.
Well, I
Well,
mean, water is a big deal. It's probably
I
one of the
mean,
biggest deals.
eventually in the plan of operation, I expect to see a sampling program and a testing program for everything that comes out of that building and off of that site. I realize that's near the tail end, but I assume, one of my favorite words, that the county is going to require the same thing, but I can't speak for the county. I mean, that to me is just common engineering. That's why I asked when I started elaborating on this, are you washing the outsides of trucks or are you washing tankers and what's inside? And what I'm concerned about is somebody pulls in there with a tank load of methyl ethyl, you know what, and it ends up in the stormwater pond, sitting on 2 feet of bedrock, down 2 feet, and ends up, and we've got a problem. And I don't want that, I'm sure nobody else wants that too. But I don't feel anywhere near comfortable enough right now at this stage of the game to even consider that.
And the water from this is flowing southeast.
Correct.
So that's all residential. I mean, there's a industrial park and then it's all residential past that.
Okay.
So,
One of the more recent applicants for a car wash, they came to us with the whole site delineated, what size tanks were gonna go where, what machine was gonna wash the cars, how much gray water was gonna be where, they didn't have construction documents necessarily for every single thing, but all the component parts and how all this water was gonna be handled were there.
And that's that's enough for you guys to approve. it. So
Well,
I get-
I'm not,
we have experts that need to review that
Yeah.
and deem whether you have given substantial evidence that the plan commission will approve this or not.
Okay.
I've never seen one with this many questions.
Mhm.
I've been here 15 years and this is the most I've ever seen question-wise on a CUP come before us.
Okay.
I'm actually a little surprised we're here talking about it. I'm not gonna lie.
I do think it's a good use for that corner. I'd like to approve it. I'm sure the quarry would love to have the truck wash there. But man, there's like more questions than answers in this thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, approving something based on, some approval down the road or whatever, and then, somebody spent, I don't know, who knows how many hundreds of thousands of dollars and now they can't go forward. And I mean, that gets to be too big of a mess.
And that's.
We're not
what
engineers here. We need you to
yeah.
get some engineers to tell our engineers that this will work and here's how it's gonna work, and so we can actually make a decision. on
Right.
this.
And that's what we're trying to avoid is the hundreds of thousands of dollars of all the engineering. So if there's a
Well,
level
I don't-
of what
I
I
don't
can
know.
bring
Well,
to it.
I don't
Here's
know
the
what it's
thing.
gonna cost.
Here's the thing. I don't think anybody here is against this going here. If that's what you're asking,
Yes.
I don't think anybody here is against that from what I'm hearing. Anybody here opposed to this truck wash going here if it works? So the
No.
problem is you were gonna put that money in the engineering anyway.
Correct.
So if it failed after you did all that, you were still out it. So if you can do that engineering and bring it back and show that this is gonna work, I think we're in good shape. I'm not against this going here.
Okay. Are we against the truck parking and the overnight truck parking? Because that was the add-on to the project since we were here last.
Are those the spaces that you got on the north end of the lot?
I don't know if that's gonna fall under the design standards though, is it? Will Sussex approve that? Because that is, it's not technically outside storage, but I don't think you're gonna get that by Sussex.
That was unclear to me. I was treating it as parking, but wondering if it counts as storage. I mean, I focused my comments on the need for very, very robust screening, if they're going to have parking there, but not knowing how that would be received. They are proposing a fence around there and some trees. That's been a point of discussion between us, but they're aware that the landscaping currently on the plan is not going to meet the standards.
I mean, you're literally parking these trucks in the most visible portion of the site.
There is no non-visible portion. of
Right,
this
but I mean,
site.
if anything, I mean, you're just like, the trucks are in front of the building essentially on a K there.
Is it more advantageous to put them in front of the building on the side street? This is where it worked out best for our operation
The Welcome to Sussex Monument sign is right there.
on,
Yeah,
adjacent to our property, yeah.
we're a town, their village, they're gonna be looking at this and I don't blame them.
So what I saw in the design standards, just to be clear, I don't, and unless I missed it, and I can always look at this further, which I would, but I don't see a prohibition on placing the parking lot in the front of the building, so on the street side, as long as it's outside of that 50-foot. It cannot be in the front yard, so the setback area. That was clearly in the standards. And I guess I would like to hear some discussion, how do you think the trucks would come into the site and actually enter those parking stalls? It's not clear to me how they would maneuver that. It's kind of a
The
sharp
intent
corner
is
coming in.
they pull in and back into the stalls.
Okay,
So you can always make the front end approach and back into the stall, even if you're on the ends.
okay.
You're not making a 90-degree forward turn into those first two stalls, you're backing into them.
Makes sense.
Generally, the trucks are always parked in backwards.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, that's one of the questions I asked about snow storage, because what I read on your preliminary site plan here is you've got landscaping and fencing right next to the edge of the asphalt. We get a foot of snow. First thing that's gonna go is the fence, which crumbs over and just runs over all the landscaping you put and everything else. There's a tremendous amount of pavement on here. That's a lot of snow. Where's that gonna be piled? I mean, when we get snow.
The intent was that it would all be pushed to the southeast side of the property,
So where
Where
the
they're-
parking stalls are for the, you lose some parking stalls in the.
where the
truck there.
hand is.
So
In the yard there.
Oh,
Yeah,
This hatched area is
that's
Is it
natural
delineated
wetlands.
wetland?
Delineated wetlands.
Okay.
so anything from the dirty side of the parking lot and the snow is gonna go in the stormwater pond.
The only stormwater pond is down here now, is that
Is that down
Correct.
there?
right? So
So
you
what
used to
is-
have one
it's gonna
next to the
swale?
building, but that's no longer.
Sorry.
We used to have it next to the building. We used to have it in where we were planning on pushing the snow so we could push it into the pond and get it to filter into the pond. The engineer working with the county wants it down on the south end of the site now.
What is this?
That's a delineated wetlands.
Oh, that's not good either. Is it actually wet?
There's stuff growing in it, but it's the swale of the road and it's a delineated wetland, so anything coming off the road is going into there. Ours would have to go all the way across the grass field to get into there.
Did you explore any other options? I'm just curious, because I haven't seen any other alternate layouts for this site except for this, or this without the parking stalls in the north. Have you explored other options where you could have the building maybe towards the north, somehow get the parking on the southeast side of that pavement for the overnight?
No,
And have
we
trucks come back around to,
we
come back to
haven't
the
looked
wash?
at that. We
Okay.
focused on this because we wanted all the trucks to come right in on the north side of the building. So we wanted to keep them out on the north side so they could drive right in.
makes sense. I'm thinking if you did that, you might have to have the trucks come back, do the loop when it's time to wash them, but.
If they come back out and go back into parking, then they loop around, drive out onto the road and back in.
Do you know how many trucks you would anticipate at peak times? You have a way of,
How many trucks do we anticipate at peak operation? Trucks per day?
How many trucks?
Yeah, per day.
Oh, per day, maybe 20 the most, 30. Would be, we have about 6, 7 guys, 8 guys working.
So 20 to 30 trucks per day. And that's because we don't want the companies don't really want their drivers sitting in a line like you would sit in for your car. So that's why when we started talking to them, they wanted the option to leave trucks here and bring it in the evening, wash them in the evening after trucking hours. So that's the 7 to 4 is what generally the truckers are running. After that time, they would park the trucks here, and then we would wash them in the evening.
Within the hours. When you say the evening, you just mean up to the hours of operation?
5, I think it was 4 to 9.
Yeah.
Trucking ends at 4, so they park the trucks here. 4 to 9, we have time to wash them out.
Timing for me, I guess, isn't really, you're not around any rural residents. I mean, there's one that's, what, a quarter mile away?
Sounds right, yeah.
2 lots down to the east.
So I mean, you're in a decent area for this. I don't think that's an issue. I mean, I don't think I would have been opposed to 24/7 operation here, to be honest with
Yeah.
you, but.
So as we refine everything for you, we can adjust the fence, we can move stuff around, which will work with the planner to do that.
What, if this parking lot would meet the design standards and got the blessing of Sussex, which they have to give, is the commission okay with an overnight parking lot over here?
I guess I have a question of, is what comes first, the chicken or the egg? I mean, why, I mean, should this be sitting before Sussex and Lisbon before it sits in front of Lisbon? Because otherwise, I mean, are we gonna get ourselves in a corner?
Well, it would come to us and then we would submit to them.
Okay.
I don't think that's changed, correct? Yeah. So we need to give them something to look at.
Okay.
It's just a little, we don't know for sure if this is covered in those design standards.
Yeah. It's not, yeah.
The landscaping was the idea was to cover that, to make it not the parking lot, not so much.
And it could be achieved through retaining walls, landscaping, fencing, a berm. There's multiple ideas have been tossed out there, but
I guess this might be one of those times where we want to consult with our friends over in the village and find out what they're looking for here.
might be helpful.
Have any of these so-called gateway areas ever come up? Is this the first one?
Oh, they've come up, but this is, I don't want to say, it's first one under the new,
Okay. The reason I asked that question is,
first one that doesn't have 3 lawyers looking at it.
well, that's always comforting for everybody. But anyway, no insult, Michael, but what I'm getting at is I'm concerned that we don't know exactly what their position is yet, and we're kind of groping in the dark yet. And I realize, that's why I asked the question, do we go first and then it goes to the joint committee and then it comes?
There actually is no joint committee anymore.
Yeah.
So it's just, we decide they meet the standards. They get to look at it and decide if they meet the standards. If they don't, if like we say they do and they say they don't, then the Waukesha County gets to come in and say they do or they don't.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I asked
So-
the question.
I've been beating the drum on the standards because it's easier if you can just try to meet them and we can
Yeah.
know for sure that they're met.
Do I need to go
You're
to Sussex?
Work
Okay, you guys are going to Sussex. I'm not working with 2 communities again. Because when we first started this, I was trying to go back and forth between the,
It's better now than it was.
okay,
There's the design, which standards that are in here.
Yeah.
You have to meet that.
correct.
So that's what,
Right.
it's just with this trucking portion and you know how things can be looked at and one person says it looks great, and one person says no.
Right.
So,
And the gateway issues and
right.
issues, yes. So.
And we are definitely playing nice in the sandbox with Sussex right now and we want to continue to play
Okay,
nice.
so, yes.
It's
Okay,
safe to say they could treat the design standards as a checklist and maybe go through those and be prepared if you feel like there's any that you could not meet for whatever reason. Bring that discussion forward, or that could be.
Right.
bring it
discussed,
back
you
to
know.
staff level and we'll meet with you and
So I have a
refine
question.
it as necessary.
I have a question for you. So essentially, he wanted to make, before he moved too much farther, he just wanted to see if overnight parking installs on this facility or on this property would be acceptable to the board if it is acceptable to Sussex for the gateway. Would the board be okay with him moving forward and leaving parking areas?
That is the question. Jeff, how do you feel about it?
I can't speak for the board. Are
Or
you
the
talking about the commission? Okay.
I
You're
call it the
confusing
board
me
all the
there.
time, too.
No, I think if Sussex would agree to the parking, I have no objection to it whatsoever.
Okay. Parking issue alone, Joe?
I don't have any problem with the parking issue. I believe it's the nature of the operation. It's necessary. I just got to make it work.
Sure. Mark?
I wish there was someplace else to put it, but I don't see where you're gonna go with it on this site. So I guess I'd be okay with it if it's designed right and looks nice.
Brian?
I don't have any problem with it.
Becky?
I don't have a problem as long as it's screened or fenced or something.
You have your answer on that.
Not holding anybody to it, not taking that as an approval, but consensus of the board. Okay, the rest of the issues we will continue to work out. So we will proceed forward with that kind of understanding. Okay, any other things that we want to talk about tonight that we got a list of 20 things. There were really 4 highlighted at the bottom that you had on the screen earlier.
Yeah, and I was really trying to boil this down because I didn't want to restate all the design
Yeah.
standards. So I'd say, look at the design standards directly. That's your best bet. And then these comments could go away. I try not to comment on things where it does meet the standard.
Right.
So this was a lot longer of a memo than I would like to have written.
Right, no, but as you can see, unless we get an understanding that we can put this here, there's no
Yeah.
sense in us doing
Understood.
all
Right.
of this stuff. So,
So
I hope you feel better about that end of it.
yes. You feel okay about that? Yeah. Okay.
So once you work through the standards and you think you have something I can bring to Sussex you believe is going to be acceptable, looking at the standards, that's when we're going to move the next step, and I'll take it to Sussex. So I'm going to wait for you.
That'll be fine.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other comments?
We need a motion to table this. I'll make such motion. Okay, I'm sorry.
Motion's been made to table. Is there a time frame?
For a CU, probably.
Yeah, we're gonna have to put a
take
date on
action.
this, aren't we?
They all come back until they're prepared.
So just table until the next, is
To the next plan commission meeting.
there a second to that?
I'll second it.
There is motion made and seconded. There's no discussion.
Who was the second?
Jeff?
Technically, the deadline for the next commission meeting was today. So it would have to be August at the soonest. Sorry.
The next available plan commission meeting, is the motion okay with that?
Yes.
And the second is also okay with that? All right, no other discussion at this point. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Item E, discussion necessary action on the request by Joe Bukovich, MLG PF Twin Pines, for the property located at West 274 North 8442 Lake 5 Road, tax key LSBT 0171.995, for approval and recommendation to the town board of the following items related to Twin Pine Farms Phase 3, the final plat, and the developers agreement. All right, we have Ann Scardino. Computer, he's been waiting patiently. All right, Rachel?
All right. Let's see if we can keep this fairly brief. You've seen this project already recently and granted some approvals. So this is really just the next step in the process for this development. Twin Pine Farms 3, this is the 3rd phase, bounded by Lake 5 Road on the east and Center Oak Road on the west, also town of Merton on the west. And Village of Merton. This is involved in the joint planning area, so this has gone to the Lisbon Merton Joint Plan Commission. Yeah, 3 times. You recently approved the preliminary plat and the zoning for the subdivision, which would be zoned R1, or sorry, R2. R1, excuse me. Slowing down. All right. This is on 53 acres. We got 36 lots, 8 outlots. Nothing significant has changed since the preliminary plat. You can say that this is the layout. Also in your packets is a landscape plan that goes along with the plat. I'd say the developer provided more of a landscape plan than he needed to because the subdivision ordinance requires that he provide one for the Boulevard Island for the Plan Commission to review. So it provides that as well as other landscaping within cul-de-sac islands. So that, if you recall, this includes some larger cul-de-sac bulbs than is typical, but they have landscaped islands inside them. So that's a unique feature of this in keeping with the other phases of Twin Pine Farms. Got some details here. Had the staff comments in the memo are generally pretty technical in nature. So just minor things like labels, plat notes, showing the 75-foot wetland setback that's currently there, which he's proposing to get rid of through permitting. The layout's been vetted with the Joint Plan Commission. I mentioned that, but Lisbon Fire as well, the Town of Merton, DPW, Public Works Director, and I believe everybody that needs to see it has had a kick at this, and they're satisfied with the way it is currently proposed outside of this meeting. Proposed covenants still have to be submitted to address staff comments. Those are anticipated as a follow-up. If the commission wanted to see the covenants, you could require that. I don't recall if we asked that specific question at the last meeting, but currently I would just expect they'd be submitted. Staff could review them, but if you would like to see those at a future meeting, you could require that.
Before you go, does the commission want to see the covenants or?
They're essentially going to be similar very closely to what the first 2 phases were, correct?
You unmute, Dan.
Dan's not muted. That's what they've indicated so far. That makes some minor tweaks, but
Yeah,
you can speak to
I
that.
don't need to see them personally.
The covenants actually, I'm sorry, Dan Scardino from Point Real Estate. The covenants are going to be identical, but we're going to be requiring additional stone features in the front of the homes where it was unclear in the original covenants that were recorded in 2005. The sizes, the materials are going to be identical.
Thank you. So does anybody on the commission want to see the covenants? No.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Because I wasn't here when the covenants was put together, can you tell me who's responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of the cul-de-sac bulbs?
The homeowners association there's a budget that manages all of those and they're mowed weekly. The trees are pruned annually. And I think this year on the north 2 phases, there were 4 trees replaced within the existing cul-de-sac bulbs.
That's all I needed. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Those were really the comments on the plat. If you have more discussion on the landscape plan, that is in there. The landscape plan also includes a proposed monument sign for the subdivision. It says similar to one of the 2 signs that are existing out there now, or possibly identical, I guess, to the northernmost sign. But this ran into some issues with the new sign ordinance, which granted we couldn't anticipate everything when that ordinance was updated, but it does not currently meet the size limit in the ordinance, even with the flexibility factor. So I've had some communication with the developer on that, and it wasn't ready in time for this meeting, but I've asked him to take another look at that, see if he can meet that standard, because it is in the zoning code. You basically have to meet it or try to get a variance, which I don't know that I don't see a good route for a case to be made for that, for the hardship. So that's still to be determined. I don't know that that's ready for action at tonight's meeting, but if you have feedback on that, I do have, I guess just I wanted to check the temperature of the commission on this, get feedback on how to, if you have an opinion on how I measure signs when doing a staff review, or any staff doing this. The ordinance is written to say that sign area is really like simple polygons. You just measure the total sign area. There's a measurement for the sign face, which in this case is kind of obvious. It's like the metal sign that has the name of the subdivision. But the way sign area total is defined, it really includes the entire structure, anything attached or that could be a supporting structure for the sign. It's a fairly inclusive definition of sign area. And so when I read that, I think I have to measure the pergola that's proposed over the top, you know, the supporting columns and, yeah.
Sorry for interrupting, but just looking at their sign as an example, I think that's a fantastic example of what you said. You could end up with a sign with the subdivision's name on it that's this big because they've got all this stonework and artwork and woodwork and it.
Thank you.
That's how that would work.
Yeah, the way I took it here, I guess the largest way I could measure it would be the 9-foot height. That's the height of the total to the top of the pergola.
Yeah.
About 16 feet wide would be the base at just the stone pillars, and that would get us a total of 144 square feet. I would like to be able to exclude the airspace in there maybe, but then that could get tricky, and I think the ordinance was purposely written to just say, take a, you know, regular polygon and just get the size of the sign.
I
I mean,
mean,
that's
it-
easier, but
Using Barnwood as an example, because I live across the street from there,
yeah.
they outlined the name of the subdivision by cutting out the letters. So somebody could say, well, do we exclude the air that's in there where the letter B is? I mean,
I never want to have to go there.
yeah, I was gonna say, you're younger than I am, you could, but I don't know how you deal with this.
This sign already exists in the other subdivision, correct?
Right.
It's identical. So there's three main entrances for Twin Pine. Main entrance in the north. This is mimicking the north entrance.
So the issue is the dead space above the Twin Pines portion, essentially.
It could be both. I think the height is not a big deal because with the 20% flexibility, I'm assuming, again, we'd use that built into your code. It's great. It would require some extra landscaping, so they'd have to really landscape a lot within that island, but they could get up to 8.4 feet in height. And I think that's very close to where they're at. So I don't see a problem reaching that if they'd have to modify the sign to do it. The area would be a little trickier, but I thought that this is just, I discussed with Joe Bukovic and just said, let me know what you think, if you have ideas, Joe, but I said, maybe bringing the pillars in, bringing the sign height down a little bit. If we're allowed to exclude some of that airspace underneath the sign.
Thing is, this is exactly the same sign as is already
Right.
in.
I know.
Yeah, why wouldn't you make it all the same? But going forward for the next one that comes in there,
Yeah.
I mean, this is tricky. If you had a stone wall, as an example, that was 50 feet long and 10 feet high, but the name of the subdivision was only this big, do you just count the name of the subdivision? Or do you count the whole structure wall that this thing is on? I mean, you could,
Does this sign mean our old sign code?
I'm assuming
know
it did, but I didn't review it against, I couldn't say. It
'Cause I mean, not much did.
sounded like there were a lot of problems. I heard that a lot
I
of
mean, it seemed like every
variances
sign
were-
that came in front of us had to be,
Yeah, and we were trying to avoid that with the
Variance
new code, but not to say it couldn't stand to be
mean-
updated.
right.
Or also you could take it out of your zoning code again. I know we put it in the zoning code for, I don't remember exactly why, but in hindsight, maybe having it in a different chapter would give you more flexibility on sign approvals.
So, I mean, being we have it the way it is, we can't approve it? It'd have to go to the zoning board of appeals and they have to prove a hardship?
I believe so. I don't see a way around that. I tried to find ways to say yes, and I just couldn't come up with one, other than make it smaller. And it looks great. There's nothing, not saying anything against that, but
Oh, boy.
that's the only sticky thing I've found with this review for tonight on this.
So if that space above was not included, the flexibility and how we determine that? I mean, it's,
The best I could get was, yeah, so the maximum, so it's 50 feet for a subdivision monument sign. Which again, you could always change that. You'd have to go through that process and so on. 60 square feet with the 20% flexibility. If I excluded all the airspace, so just looked at like pillars, the middle sign and the one board of the pergola, that gets me 68.8 square feet. So it's still more than the standard with the flexibility. Trying to find every, most charitable way to measure.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. But I don't think when we did the sign code, we didn't review it against every existing sign. It was just a best sense of it. So,
Is it just a matter, Rachel, of the wording in the sign code about what you measure? Is
yeah,
that what the issue is?
that is the sticky spot. Yeah, I didn't know if I had flexibility in how to,
In all the communities I've worked with over many, many years, I've never found a sign code that's 100% perfect. They just don't exist, I'm sorry.
Right. I mean, does anybody not want these signs to be consistent?
I'd like them to be the same.
Yeah, they should.
I think they
Right.
should be too.
But to go forth for the next one, wouldn't it be most appropriate to go through the process and go through an appeal and get,
What's their hardship?
it's a darn good question.
It's an aesthetic hardship.
I mean, you can't,
Have to look the
it can't be
same.
money, it can't be, I don't,
Well.
I almost feel foolish.
That we changed the rules in the middle of the game.
Acceptable on the other
I think we're gonna have to change the sign code to give us some flexibility on what we wanna do.
yeah, it sounds like that would be helpful because I imagine you might run into this again.
Yeah, I guess we didn't think about how this was gonna tie our hands. Because we were the sign code administrators and we were able to grant variances to things and now we can't.
Yeah, unforeseen.
I've not ever had a sign code in the zoning. It was actually done in the places I worked were all done by the town, not even the planning.
Let's fix this.
So you could just table that idea for a while and then it would give you time to tell staff what you'd like to do. So,
I mean, I think you can see the will of the commission. We'd like these signs to be all the same, so how do we make that happen?
We'll have to do, we'll have to change our code before he puts up the sign. So we could not approve the sign at this point
Okay,
and go through the process of changing our code to allow something like this to work. And then because the subdivision's not gonna suddenly be done next week. So
right. When was your plan, Dan, to get this sign put up?
So ideally, depending on the developer's agreement, approval tonight, we are hoping to break ground in July, which means the sign construction would happen in August, September.
Doable? Okay.
there's nothing to say they can't put pillars on it.
Isn't that a sign? Well, we're considering it a sign now. I don't care. We just want this fixed, I guess.
Can't we grandfather it in?
Right.
This is the third sign that it has to match the other two.
So, do you want to take the sign code out of the zoning law?
Just, I did not, I guess we didn't even, I don't know if anybody here thought that we weren't gonna have an ability to grant some kind of lenience on things with the sign code, so.
Or we could make that as a change that allows the board to make it a commission.
And whatever you think we need to do on that,
Who is this
Yeah.
administrator?
We'll get it going.
we were.
Well, who is now?
Well, we took that away from ourselves because apparently we didn't trust ourselves.
Who did we give it to?
I think you still are unless you specifically delegate it, like,
Right, but we can't
Right,
actually grant a variance,
oh, right,
so we completely tied our hands.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll get that. We're gonna get it fixed, Dan.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
First time the plan commission feels completely helpless.
Sorry.
All
That
right,
was a strange one.
what else we have to look at? Sorry, they got real distracted here with the sign.
No, that was really the thorniest thing I ran into. I would say, those were all the comments I had on the plat. I have no comments on the developer agreement. It's been drafted through typical process. It's ready for you to approve tonight if you would like to do so. And same with the final plat, and I have some recommended conditions if you'd like to use those. With the addition that I would recommend, if you approve the plat, also include approval of the landscape plan, just so the developer knows that that is approved as well.
Questions
Didn't write
from the
it that
board?
way.
Of course. I have a couple of typos in the developers agreement that I can deal with the attorney on after the meeting unless you want me to go. I mean, there's only one that's of consequence and it has to do with the impact fees. And it's a question on page 8 of the developers agreement. Under public facility dedication fee. And the fourth line down, it says, improving public park and transportation facilities based upon the town's, I believe the word then should be inserted in their current public, because I buy a lot out there, but I don't pull the building permit for 10 years. Meanwhile, there's been various iterations of the assessment. Which fee do I pay when I pull my building permit? I'm used to seeing the word then in there. In other words, you pay whatever the fee is when you pull the permit, not the date of the developer's agreement. But it's a policy issue on.
Then
The fourth line, between towns and current, I believe the word then should be in there after towns. But that's just my opinion.
Can't speak for the attorney, but I do believe that's the state law as well anyway. So that would be our assumption of how that would work.
Okay.
And the impact fee ordinance as well, but we can clean that. That's fine.
And then I've got a couple of typos, but I'll go over with Michael.
anything
after
that changes the,
No. I'm fine with I think the developers agreement is a very good one. I've seen a zillion of these and this is one of the best ones I've seen. I think the town is very well protected.
Let me add one point on the developer's agreement. I went back through a few iterations with the developer's attorney. If you want to, page 12 of the developer's agreement, there is a provision that was added by the attorney, giving the developer the opportunity to cure any default. Usually we don't have that in our standard developer's agreement, but this is a request by the developer. It's not a concern to me to have a right to cure in there, and it's usually a good thing to have the developer take care of an issue. However, the key point here is the timeline, 15 days. If that's acceptable to planning commission, that's fine by me. It really comes down to how much time the town has to give before taking any further action. They got to give a 15-day notice period. If the town wishes to reduce that a little bit, they can. If 15 days is acceptable, that's fine. But I just want to at least recognize that in light of the fact that this provision isn't typically in our developer agreement that we use. So looking for some feedback on that. If there is none, that's fine with me.
I saw that in there. I thought that was very fair and reasonable. And 15 days that's what I've seen in construction contracts, because if you get a week of rain or something, there's something's got to be fixed. By the time they get out there, get somebody on board to do it, and they physically do the work, 15 days is not bad. And I think it protects the town. And I specifically saw that and marked that in there. And I think that's fair and reasonable.
everyone else okay with that? Seeing all nods. Okay, thank you. Any questions on the final plat or developers agreement? Jeff, anything?
No.
Joe, you're,
I've just got a couple. I'll go over with Michael.
okay.
Typos.
Mark? Brian? Becky?
Nope.
All right, anything else from staff?
Motion for the DA's got to include the inclusion of the exhibits as well. Those aren't attached right now.
Okay. Well, let's take the final plat first. Is there a motion on the final plat? You said it had to include what? What was the? landscape plan. Started writing it and didn't finish.
I'll make a motion that we approve the request by, or I just can say we approve the final plat, right?
Including the landscape.
Including the landscape plan and what else did you say, Mike?
Exhibits.
Is that it? Nothing? You didn't? Oh,
That
okay.
should be it.
Okay.
Is
For
there-
Twin Pines.
Is there a second? Second by Mark. Any final discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And the developers agreement.
I'll make a motion to approve the developers agreement
Including,
and exhibits.
with the changes,
Inclusion of the exhibits,
with your changes.
with a few minor typos.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mark. Any final discussion on this? It covers everything. All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Dan. Oh, and then this. I don't think it's even on here. We're trying to forget it. Okay. Thank you, Dan. We'll just wave at you there. Thank you. All right. Item F, discussion only regarding creation of the new agritourism zoning district.
So we had, I'll just get started a little bit before Rachel takes it over. We've had a property owner interested in creating a agritainment or agritourism type of a zoning district. This type of district would include not only the agriculture portion, but also some portion of a type of business. And this, we wanted to see if the Plan Commission would like us to do any work on it. We didn't do a lot of work on it at this point, but we don't have anything that falls into this type of a category. We have either business or we have agriculture or residential, or industrial, but we don't have something that this type of business would work in. So we started talking about it, agritainment or agritourism district to be a type of agriculture business. It's been, we've talked to the county about it a little bit to get some, their thoughts on it. And there are some conditions that we could put into this type of a zoning, that it has to have, a percentage of it has to stay agriculture, like 70% or something like that would have to still be agriculture if you're going to run some kind of a business out of this area. We heard Mr. Then and Ms. Then speak about possible wedding event venues and trains and other entertainment type atmosphere. So before we put too much effort into it, I wanted to kind of bring it to you to see if that's something that we might want to consider.
And we are talking in a broad scope of agritourism at this point, not about any particular single.
Right. We want to put it on the books. And the other thing is to make sure that we have enough land mass, so then there's not every lot that has 20 acres or 10 acres could do something like this. Something that had, like 100 acres to it that would have to be on maybe a county or state highway, so then it's not filling up our town roads. So there's a lot of different things we could put in this to kind of allow a business like this, but not allow it in every agriculture area that we have, land that we have in the town. So,
Other communities. have something like that.
oh, absolutely. And so we do have, there's a lot of these types of places around the state. And they use them in different ways. Each one uses them a little different. But we wanted to first get the zoning. It still would allow for a site plan of operation situation. We can do, we can put something together for the zoning portion and then move forward from there. Rachel's going to take it from here because she really did some work on the, on getting some questions for the Plan Commission to really consider. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. So I guess when questions like this come up and thinking about, I mean, it's sort of growing in popularity, similar to wedding barns. It's the type of thing that staff might get asked about occasionally. And it's the kind of thing that, especially as we just went through the zoning code and the list of conditional uses, that gave staff a really good opportunity to see all the land uses listed in your zoning ordinance, which districts, mention them, which districts don't, how they're permitted in some, conditional in others. A lot of districts are silent on various types of activities or land uses, and so it's hard to know where you might find this acceptable or not, and it's just a question that would have to be put to the Plan Commission and Town Board. So approaching this kind of question, it seems that your agricultural districts right now wouldn't, the uses that are listed in those districts are really very specific and clearly your most obvious types of farm operations. But for someone to do something a little more creative with their farm or have other types of businesses on there or events, if it's a wedding barn or something else, it's hard for staff to know if that's permitted and how to really approach that. So I guess we wanted to get your thoughts and just some initial feedback on if this is something that should be considered. Should it be added as its own zoning district to maybe accommodate something that's unique and not specific to just your standard farm operation? If so, or could be added to the code in other ways too, to clarify if this is allowed. The things that I might recommend as like food for thought on this would be, what kinds of criteria would you want to apply to such a thing? If you support the idea of adding it to your zoning code, would you have criteria such as minimum parcel size, like Kathy mentioned? How farm related does it have to be? Is it a question of how much of the operation gets income from farm activities versus other types of activities? How does this relate to other uses allowed in your districts and what you imagine, those districts, what they're intended for and what the zoning code says they're intended for? What types of activities really would you wish to regulate? So like, are there things that, I know a couple of them were mentioned tonight, as an example, but like, do you care if someone on a farm has some events? Like if it's a family gatherings or weddings, like does the zoning code need to get into regulating events of any kind, or is it specific to certain activities? If there are games or, family-friendly functions, how much do you want to get into regulating those things in your zoning code? I would be interested in taking the temperature of the commission on those types of questions. I know it's hard to do without, a lot of information, but it's just very.
We just wanted to get it a little bit in front of you before we put too much effort into it. We spoke with the attorney and our planner, and I sat and then we brought it to the county planner as well to see if that was even something that would be considered. And she wrote up some really good questions for us to work on while we work through the process. So.
Would this be an overlay district?
Could be done that way?
Could be.
I mean, I'm just trying to think about how far somebody would want to get in. For an example, somebody has a 40-acre pumpkin farm and they have hay rides for the kids and the big kids, the parents and all the rest of the stuff. I don't think we want to get into regulating something like that, but at what point in time do you get over the threshold would be my concern. I mean, you don't want to And Rachel, you brought up the fact if somebody wants to have a wedding at their farm for crying out, I mean, for one of their children or whatever, I mean, how far?
I guess
think
it's the
we have to be
question, if
real-
someone wanted to rent a venue.
We'd have to be really careful about how far we got into operating or monitoring everybody's activity.
Well, the idea of the zoning to some kind of agribusiness or tourism, agritourism, is to really show that you're doing something with the public, not your own family.
Yeah.
That it's a business environment, something more than just agricultural business itself. And that's because you can get into that argument, well, a farm is a business if it starts selling things. Well, it's a business because it is always selling things, or is.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
So, but a district might help define this if something like this were to come forward, that we have some meat that we can actually go through and say, these are the conditions, or these are the things that in order to use this type of zoning, you have to fall into X, Y.
I guess based on some of the concerns we heard earlier, my concern would be that if we develop this kind of a zoning, that what are the permitted uses going to be, where once it's zoned that way, we can't stop somebody from doing what it is they want to do. And then we have neighbors coming to us going, well, what's going on? We got a steam train running through our backyard here until it's dark outside. So those permitted uses get to be a big problem when you rezone places, I think, and we don't have, personally, my feeling is that if we don't have people coming to us asking us for something, I don't think we need to change the zoning code. I mean, if we can't accommodate somebody because our zoning won't do it, that would be one reason to look at maybe doing this. But my opinion is it's not necessary for us at this time.
We wanted to make it as general as possible, so we weren't putting together a zoning district for one business. We do have a client, a business that does want to do this, a farm that does want to do this, and but we don't want it to be opened up to, like I said, if we don't have if you don't have something that has real tight parameters, you could do this anywhere in the town then. The idea is we'd want to make sure that the parameters are tight enough where it doesn't affect the neighbors, the neighboring community, and but still allows a business like this to run.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate way of describing it. You want to think about it broadly, that other people might be interested in doing this on their farms. We just anticipate that would be the case, so it's a really more of a general question. And I guess be interested in feedback on the approach. I mean, and what information would you need to make a decision on this? If this is something someone wants to bring forward as a formal proposal, or if you want staff to kind of look into this further, what would you need to make a decision on this type of thing? I see in general a few different approaches to this, just based on very preliminary research I've done, but I haven't spent much time on this. That could be an overlay district. I suppose you could do planned development. I believe currently your code allows that on top of any other zoning district. So, but the kicker there is that you can't modify the land uses that are permitted. So I guess that right there is the stopper for this. It could be its own district, or it could be a conditional use or a permitted use in one of your existing districts. And their, conditional uses have their own very specific rules and everything, as so that could come with its own pros and cons, regardless of which approach you would take. I think other communities handle this differently, but I don't know that we've pulled, many examples yet of how this is regulated elsewhere. Communities that want to accommodate this kind of business, because it can be very popular. And it might be appropriate, given you have some large swaths of land out there and owners who might have space for this kind of thing. That
could also be very scary because of that.
Right.
I have a question. Like the Preserve at Harvest Ridge, before it was Preserve at Harvest Ridge, we gave a conditional use permit to that owner so that he could have pumpkin farm and hay rides and petting zoo and all that other stuff. So I mean, I guess, is it something that a farmer could just come in and ask for if he's got so many acres? I don't know, maybe I'm
Yeah,
not phrasing that correctly, but we've done similar things with other property owners.
Mhm.
And they were just zoned agricultural. He had 110 acres, I believe.
That's helpful background.
Yeah, that was only a couple of years, 4 years ago.
Yeah, that was Preserve and Harvest Ridge before it was Preserve and Harvest Ridge.
I know it's gonna have a corn maze and petting
Yep,
zoo.
that, yes.
Kind of stuff I'm thinking.
And they just did it under,
Yep.
they just did it under agriculture. And you didn't feel that there was any need to structure it all with some kind of business, because he's running a business with that?
For a conditional use?
We did what was recommended.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just questioning, because I wasn't aware of that, and, because I wasn't here, but that's something to think about.
Is that the only case you can remember something like that in Lisbon? Or have there been other examples?
Yeah, that's the only one I can think of.
I mean, Landon had this with Boyles. Long time ago, I guess.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
The,
Maybe at the
there's,
Wedding Barn, yeah.
yeah, well, you've got Myers,
Wedding barn.
the wedding barn. Mark Myers, yeah, he was just in.
Place down on Q. Down west of Papa Murphy's, wasn't there that farm? And they had kids and stuff that could come and ride animals and
Friday
take
used to
care
do
of
this.
animals?
Who did?
Then,
Who did?
I don't know.
Fridays, they used to have
I
a
don't remember what it was called.
special event day where they had, I mean, it was,
Oh,
they had day
their
rides and everything.
Father's Day
Father's
thing.
Day.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is old stuff.
They had bands.
Well, Helquist did it though too.
Yeah, with
Helquist had dozer days.
those
Oh,
are
yeah.
days.
And how do we approve?
But they're
And that was
small,
temporary
but
stuff.
they're, yeah, they're temporary. If we're looking at something more permanent, something that's,
Yeah,
you know,
know it's
more
gonna
than
be
just
recurring.
one, you know, one season. It sounds like you guys think we don't need it, that what we have is well enough. What?
I don't think any of us
Yeah,
know.
I don't know if
No.
we need it. Yeah, that's, I don't know, because
I don't know what it is, per se.
You'd have to list, you know, an arm length worth of things in there, and then I would feel more comfortable just dealing with it with a conditional use on a case-by-case basis, so that we would have more control over it. Now, the applicant may not feel comfortable with that because that's a temporary thing to a certain extent, but
A conditional use?
yeah.
You can have the conditional use for as long as you
Yeah,
own
I
the
know,
business, as long as you
but
keep it
I'm-
running.
All I'm saying is I don't know how to enumerate in a zoning code all the things that may come up, where with a CU, I think that there's more flexibility and able to do it that way.
Does our ag zoning allow for that type of a business, a conditional use of that sort?
Just to give you an example of what's in the ordinance here, looking at some of your ag districts. I'm gonna pick a larger one here. That's conservancy. Okay. I don't know why I'm using that.
It could also be dealt with as an unclassified use, kind of like we did with Sunvest recently.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just
and the
un-
truck wash, even though that's
Same
now
kind
been
of-
resolved.
Same kind of concept.
Unspecified use.
It's, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
processed that way. It's another alternative. Both the old and the new CU ordinance have that provision.
Mhm. So you've got, say in your AD 10 district, so you need a 10-acre farm to do these things. You've got your agricultural or farm uses. It lists some of the specific examples that are, crops, livestock, and so on. Specific regulations on keeping poultry and fowl. Nurseries, greenhouses, and hatcheries are permitted uses. It specifies a temporary roadside stand, so that's how fine grained the, zoning code gets when I read this. It's fairly detailed. Home occupation, hobby kennels, or a family home daycare. Those are all the permitted uses listed. It has a few prohibited, and a short list of conditional uses, things like bed and breakfast, veterinarians, churches, synagogues, etc., private clubs and resorts, public and semi-public buildings and uses, communication towers, cemeteries, and mausoleums. So that's it. If I was looking at that district and somebody, proposed something that's a little more, I don't know, event-oriented, or had the tractor events and all these other things and hay rides, it's not listed in there, it doesn't seem similar. We could always, I guess bring it in.
Do you want us to
like
write
was saying.
something, get something written up before we wanted to get in front of it a little bit with you, just so we weren't putting in too much time, but I guess we're too vague to get you more of a, more information, maybe, unspecified use and how that unspecified use would, because we'd want it tailored, so then not everybody can use that as a possibility, I would think.
Yeah, maybe a model ordinance or some ordinance from some other community or something, so I can kind of see how they're regulating that stuff. But again, my biggest concern is we rezone that for somebody, and then whatever those permitted uses are in there, they're permitted, period.
Right. That's where the CU might be the way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then every time they want to add something, they have to come back
Right.
in, or I guess that's the point, right? I guess that's the point. Okay.
Right. That's my.
To a point.
concern, yeah. I'd like to have more control. Or if they don't do what they're supposed to do.
True.
All right. Well, we'll try to get something better together for you, so we can move forward.
Okay. Anything else on that one? Item 7, planner report.
All right, we just had 4 planner appointments today, so it was a busy afternoon. We had the wedding barn, speak of the devil. We had Myers come back with their wedding barn. You had just approved that in 2019, the conditional use. For various reasons, that was never, not finished and not operational yet, so that would, they are interested in bringing that back at this time and actually completing that, getting it up and running. So because that has technically it's expired, they would need to come in for a conditional use permit approval again with some, whatever modifications based on some changes they want to make, and a site plan of operations. So you can expect to see that soon, I believe in August is what we're thinking right now. We'll see when it comes in. Newman Companies met with us today on a potential new subdivision on Mary Hill Road and Silver Spring Drive, right at near the border with Sussex. A couple of landowners, Gorski and Staley, had sort of smallish things, but interested in modifying or releasing restrictions on their properties. I guess in one case, it would be an easement modification and releasing an access restriction. You might see that coming forward in the near future. The other one was a meeting we had that couldn't be allowed under the ordinance, so that won't go anywhere. Pending applications, things we already have in the hopper for next month. I didn't update this slide, so the truck wash will not be ready for the next meeting, as we discussed. Parade of Homes for Hillside Ridge should be on the agenda. We didn't know about this agritourism district. I guess we'll see if,
There's not enough time.
Yeah.
It would have to be August if we did a public hearing.
okay. And then potential, I wasn't sure, yeah, Storage Works interested in coming back. I believe in a few years ago, the Plan Commission had approved a site plan of operation for them, but not for their second phase to build out the site. Now they're interested in building that out, so they would need to come back to Plan Commission for the site plan of operation amendment and their major grading permit. Those are the only items I have in mind for the staff report there. That's all I have.
Thank you, Rachel. Any questions? All right, and I will not be here for the next plan commission meeting.
For July?
For July.
Like, I'll be out of town. You will not.
All right,
Well, I
next-
might be,
Next item is adjournment.
since it's been moved.
Who moved?
Second.
Who made the motion? I'm sorry. Oh, Mark did.
All right, Mark
Jeff
motion,
seconded.
Jeff second.
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Wrote at 9:06.
Oh, geez.